Over 4 decades ago, there was a Gundam episode that through the years would gain enough infamy that even director Tomino was asked why it was missing from every release. I'm talking about episode 15 of the original Mobile Suit Gundam, also known as Cucuruz Doan Island. This episode's story is super interesting, but it was brutally outshined by the quality of certain parts of its animation. And so, for many years, it was known as the lost episode. Until 2021, when Sunrise, along with veteran Gundam creator Yoshikazu Yasuhiko, decided to adapt and depict said episode from a new angle in the form of a feature-length film of the same name, Cucuruz Doan Island. Now, the movie is absolutely great and exactly what I want for the original Mobile Suit Gundam. Not a remake, but more like a reimagination and a loose adaptation that gives much more context and nuance to certain things, updates some other parts, and overall changes certain elements for them to feel more modern and have more impact. But at the same time, not changing them enough for the story to still make sense. It's really amazing how, comparing the original story with the new one, it stayed exactly the same. It went from point A to point B. And even though the trajectory is completely different, it doesn't leave any blatant plot holes dangling for them to become a problem and mess with what happens next. Yes, I'm talking about You Said a New Translation, but I digress. So my friends, I'm Absa, and it's time now to quickly explore why Cucuruz Doan Island is, in my humble opinion, the best way to deliver a story about the original Mobile Suit Gundam, by expanding and adapting a certain story element instead of going all the way and remaking the whole plot. Okay, so before I move on, unlike other times, I won't spoil the story. I may touch upon certain elements and or scenarios, but I won't talk about the whole movie since, well, it's too soon to talk about it. In fact, before I even wander into what happens more or less in the story, I'll go ahead and address something else as a fan of the entire Gundam franchise. I think that the way the Cucuruz Doan Island movie story was presented is the best way to revisit the original series. I'm talking about sporadic, in-depth, non-linear explorations of certain story points instead of a full-on reboot of the entire show. You see, I'm not so fond of reboots and or remakes, even worse when they tell nothing new. The superhero medium is plagued with such things, and even though every once in a while we get great things like the Batman stories of Scott Snyder and Greg Capullo, we generally get not so impressive things, and it's even worse in the films. Think Fantastic Four. For anime, it's a little bit different. On one side, we have the superb reveal of Evangelion, but on the other hand, we have the last Berserk adaptation. Now, Gundam is approaching the half-century mark, and I believe that there will be a lot, and I mean a lot of interesting things done. But I hope that there won't be any remakes. The story is there in 2 formats even, the original anime and the compilation movies. And even though I would love to see the last shooting sequence in the newer Sunrise style, I don't want to watch the entire series again just to get there. And you may be thinking, yo, Absa, that's a super first world problem. You could just skip the first episodes. And well, yeah, that is correct. Yet, that's not how I roll. I like to watch and analyze and obviously overthink everything from the start to the end. But with the Cucuruz Doan Island precedent, maybe there's a way around it. What the movie managed to accomplish was to grab a very simple story element that happened in a slightly unimportant moment in time and expanded it to fill almost 2 hours of time instead of the 20-something minutes of the original episode. Doan's backstory expanded, and his and Amura's connection was greatly improved. The background of why he is fostering the kids also got much more interesting, and even something as simple as where did he store the Saku got revamped into a much more compelling story element that I won't delve much into other than saying that it's very important to the movie but absolutely irrelevant to the rest of the original Mobile Suit Gundam plot. One could even say that this could be categorized as a filler movie, and it wouldn't be entirely wrong. But with Gundam, particularly Tomino's Universal Century, that's okay. For example, all of the plot that happens in Stardust's memory is also pseudo-filler, as it came out way after Zeta Gundam, and it didn't change anything about Zeta. So the truth is that for some parts of Universal Century, it's better for newer stories to be filler-like instead of changing something fundamental that messes with the story continuum. You know, like Camille not getting his brain fried, but I digress again. Conceptually, and I don't know if it is something that will continue on or if it was a one thing only, but for me, Doan's Island is a perfect example of a reimagining of a famous or infamous Gundam moment. It doesn't tell the same story, nor it is intended to replace what happened over 40 years ago. It's a very interesting way to tell something different regarding a certain event, but keeping almost the same characters that appeared on the very first series without being completely separated from the original story like Thunderbolt. Or, to a lesser extent, the origin that is in fact telling the story of what happened prior to the show. Cucuruz Doan Island is not a remake, nor a reboot, just a retell. Or even better, a reimagining, with the starting and ending points kept intact, but everything in between greatly improved upon. Here we get to know that Doan was a captain of a surface Saku team. We also now get to experience his grief of killing the families of the children, who in turn are now a lot more and of various different ages. Amuro also spends more time with those children and is able to perceive the consequences of war from another civilian's perspective other than his mother. But he also gets to experience a somewhat peaceful living. He even cultivates the land and has a family dinner. We also get to see the Gundam in spectacular action sequences, and better yet, the ace pilot that Doan is, considering that he has been protecting this island from fairies and Zeons for quite a while now. And I could go on and on about how this is in every way, shape and form better than the original, but I won't. I don't want to spoil the beauty of the film. Even if you already know what happens because you saw the original episode, how things happen is very different. It's a very feel-good film that probably anybody can enjoy. My only gripe is that Amuro talks very little in the movie, but that may be more related to the fact that Mr. Toru Furuya is only 40 years older than when he voiced Amuro in the original series, so yeah, his voice is not that young anymore. But that's not to say that he isn't impressive as a voice actor. He definitely gets the job done.
それを消させてください、ドアン。それを消させてください、ククルスドアン。
All in all, Cucuruz Doan Island is a great experience and a very interesting experiment regarding the possibility of a remake of the original series. For me, remakes are never the way. At least not carbon copy remakes. Instead, I much rather prefer something that's faithful to the original but manages to tell something new, just like Cucuruz Doan Island did. Imagine if this same approach was used to expand Lala's backstory, where we get to understand better her new type feelings, and it can even conclude with the Elmeth battle. Or even better, the whole Aobaoku sequence, along with the Zeong versus the Gundam and the absolutely brutal demise of Giren and Kisil Yasabi. I would really love to see more expansions of the 1 Year War in this not so canonical, flexible story style like Cucuruz Doan Island. So yeah, thank you very much for staying till the end of this mini video where I definitely say many things about Cucuruz Doan Island, except things about the plot. I really tried my best to not ruin the experience for anyone, since my intention is to encourage everyone to check out the film with an open mind, not expecting the same episode with better animation quality or even the same chronology. Just enjoy the fact that we get to see the original Mobile Suit Gundam characters in a very curious adventure. And that is absolutely wonderful. Maybe in the future I'll talk about the exact differences between the movie and the episode, or better yet, the extremely flexible way that Sunrise treats the Universal Century canon and how that is a very positive thing. Anyway, what are your spoiled-filled thoughts of the movie? Did you like the changes to the original story? And also, would you rather have a faithful remake or a looser adaptation of the original Mobile Suit Gundam? And as you may or may not know, my name is Absa, and we can continue the conversation over at Twitter, where you can follow me at Absalonicas, and on Instagram, where I post pictures of my figures, my cats, and sometimes even myself. I'll be trying to talk more about anime, comics, and maybe even figures. Until next time, always remember that in fiction lies power, so let's use it to forge a new type of story, our hero's journey.